Welcome back to the Silent Report. Today we're diving into one of the darkest and most disturbing secrets in American intelligence history. A story so twisted, so terrifying, and so well hidden that even decades later, much of it remains shrouded in mystery. This isn't a conspiracy theory, it's a documented fact. One confirmed by congressional hearings, declassified files, and victims whose lives were torn apart. The name of the project? MKUltra. The CIA's mind control experiment. What if your thoughts could be rewritten? What if your memories weren't yours? What if your very identity could be erased, reprogrammed, controlled? That's not science fiction. That was the CIA's goal. And for over 2 decades, they tried to make it a reality, using drugs, torture, isolation, and psychological warfare. Not on enemies, but on American citizens. It began in the shadows of the Cold War. The 1950s were a time of paranoia. America had emerged from World War II as a global superpower, but so had the Soviet Union. The Iron Curtain had fallen, and a silent, invisible war had begun. One fought not on battlefields, but in labs, embassies, and classified briefings. The CIA had a problem. Reports were coming in that U.S. soldiers captured by the Chinese and North Koreans were returning brainwashed, their loyalties erased, their personalities rewritten. They had been turned against their own country. The fear was chilling. Had the communists discovered the secret to mind control? Rather than fall behind, the CIA raced to catch up, and perhaps go even further. In 1953, CIA Director Allen Dulles signed off on a secret program under the agency's technical services staff. Its mission was clear: develop techniques to control the human mind. This was Project MKUltra, named for the CIA's Technical Services Division and ultra-level secrecy. The man placed in charge was Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, a Jewish-American chemist with a background in poisons, biochemistry, and a complete disregard for medical ethics. Quiet, bookish, and eccentric, he would become known inside Langley as the Black Sorcerer. And for good reason. He was given a blank check. No oversight, no accountability, no ethical boundaries. And so began a chapter of U.S. history more terrifying than any spy novel. The experiments were vast, chaotic, and horrifying. MKUltra wasn't just one project. It was a web of over 150 sub-projects, involving dozens of universities, hospitals, prisons, and research centers across the US and Canada. And most shockingly, many of the people involved had no idea they were being experimented on. Let's start with the drug trials. The CIA believed that hallucinogens, especially LSD, could be the key to unlocking or erasing the mind. Dr. Gottlieb imported enormous quantities of LSD from Switzerland. The CIA handed it out to universities, prisons, and hospitals like candy, telling doctors it was for psychological research, but never disclosing its true purpose. Subjects were dosed without their knowledge. In one project, prisoners were given LSD every day for 77 days straight. In another, soldiers at Edgewood Arsenal were exposed to unknown substances and watched by CIA operatives behind one-way mirrors. Even CIA employees themselves were secretly drugged. Some never recovered. But LSD was only the beginning. Other experiments involved electroshock therapy to the point of memory loss, sleep deprivation, sensory isolation, and even hypnosis combined with trauma to fragment the human psyche. One of the most disturbing sites was the Allen Memorial Institute in Montreal, Canada, run by Dr. Ewan Cameron, a prominent psychiatrist secretly working with the CIA under Sub-Project 68. Patients admitted for minor issues, like anxiety or postpartum depression, were turned into vegetables. They were kept in drug-induced comas for weeks, subjected to massive electroshock, and played looped audio messages for days like, "You are a failure. Your mother hates you. Obey the voice." This was called psychic driving, an attempt to break down the mind and rebuild it from scratch. Most patients never fully recovered. Some forgot their families, others lost the ability to speak or function, and none of them gave consent. Then there's the case of Frank Olson. one of the most tragic and suspicious deaths in CIA history. Olson was a biochemist working with the Army's biological weapons program at Fort Detrick. In 1953, he was invited to a CIA retreat at Deep Creek Lake. Without his knowledge, Gottlieb slipped LSD into his drink. Within days, Olson suffered a complete mental breakdown. He told friends he had seen things he couldn't live with: secret tests on civilians, biological warfare experiments, possibly even assassination plots. On November 28, 1953, Frank Olson fell from the 10th floor of the Statler Hotel in Manhattan. The CIA claimed he committed suicide. But in the 1970s, when MKUltra came to light, new questions emerged. His family demanded an autopsy. The body was exhumed, and the forensic team found injuries consistent with blunt force trauma to the head before the fall. They concluded Olson may have been pushed. To this day, no one knows the full truth of what he saw or why he died. So how did the truth finally come out? In 1973, as the Watergate scandal engulfed Washington, the CIA began to panic. Director Richard Helms ordered that all MKUltra files be destroyed, burned, shredded, vanished. He believed the program would disappear forever. But in 1977, a Freedom of Information Act request unearthed 20,000 surviving documents, mistakenly stored in a financial archive. The American public was horrified. Senator Frank Church launched a full investigation. The Church Committee hearings exposed MKUltra to the world. Testimonies were held. Victims came forward. Some wept. Others shook in silence. And still, no one was punished. Dr. Gottlieb quietly retired and moved to a goat farm in Virginia. He died in 1999, never facing justice. No CIA officials were charged. No reparations were paid to most victims. The government claimed MKUltra was an experiment gone wrong, a relic of Cold War desperation. But what they didn't say is that the methods survived. MKUltra ended in name, but not in spirit. Its research laid the groundwork for modern interrogation techniques used at Guantanamo Bay, for psychological operations in Iraq, for media manipulation and behavioral engineering on social platforms. Even today, elements of MKUltra appear in the tactics used by intelligence agencies worldwide, not just in the US. In fact, recent declassified documents reveal that similar projects continued under different names: Project Artichoke, Project Bluebird, Project Stargate. The same goals, the same tools, new packaging, and perhaps most disturbing, we now live in a digital world where control over minds doesn't require drugs or torture. It requires algorithms, attention, narrative, influence. What MKUltra tried to force with chemicals, governments can now suggest through screens. That's the silent legacy of MKUltra, a blueprint for psychological control, first through LSD, now through data. And what of the victims? Thousands were experimented on, many unknowingly. Their lives were shattered, their names erased. Some were prisoners, others were mental patients. Many were vulnerable, poor, minorities, people who couldn't fight back. They were never compensated, never truly recognized. The government gave a few small settlements, but most died in silence. One man, James Stanley, a U.S. Army sergeant, was dosed without consent. He sued. The Supreme Court threw the case out. Why? Because national security was considered more important than justice. A Canadian woman named Jean Steele was given 60 electroshock sessions under Dr. Cameron. She lost her memory, her marriage, and her ability to speak clearly. A black inmate in Atlanta named Harold Blower was injected with mescaline and other experimental drugs without his knowledge, and died. These aren't accidents. These were intentional experiments on living, breathing human beings, sanctioned by the government of the United States. So why don't we learn about MKUltra in school? Why are there no national memorials for the victims? Why do documentaries get buried and questions dismissed? Because even now, they want you to forget. MKUltra is a stain on American history. Not because it happened in secret, but because it was allowed to happen. Funded, approved, hidden, and eventually erased. If those 20,000 documents hadn't survived, we would never know. How many other programs didn't leave evidence behind? At the Silent Report, we believe some truths must be remembered. MKUltra wasn't just a Cold War footnote. It was a moment when a democracy crossed the line. When the very institutions meant to protect the people experimented on them instead. It's a warning that power without accountability always leads to abuse, and that silence always protects the abuser. Today, MKUltra is gone, but its shadow still haunts intelligence agencies, medical ethics, and psychological warfare. Every time the government says, "It's for your safety," every time a voice is labeled crazy for asking questions, every time files go missing or memories don't match history, we must remember. Because MKUltra was not science fiction. It was real, it was here, and it could happen again. Thank you for watching The Silent Report. If this truth disturbed you, it was meant to, because only the disturbed seek answers, and only the aware can resist silence. Subscribe, stay awake, and remember, some files weren't just classified, they were buried. We're here to dig them back up. Until next time, stay vigilant.